So again, welcome. And the talk today is about how to become illuminators from within, from the inside out, where we don't need to rely on outside input anymore. At the beginning, we start off with getting help from God first. Initially, God gives us everything we have. Then we have our parents, we have our teachers, we have outside friends. But they were saying we have the ability to become generators of light, warmth, insight, understanding, generating new ideas and insights in Torah, new ways of serving, bringing out the best in us to serve God and to be invigorate others, and then also to help other people discover their light and warmth within and be their own generators of light and warmth, and then also influence the world. So even physical things in the world, we turn those objects into things that support us and help us in our service of God. He's going to bring examples, and we're going to learn this inside the Sicha of Pashas Behalascha, about lighting the candelabra in the tabernacle, which has 7 branches, which symbolize 7 types of Jews, or 7 types of service of God. But we're all one candelabra. We're all one. We're made from one. The candelabra was made from a 7-branch candelabra, but made from one piece of gold, and it wasn't even divided into parts and hewn together. It was Moses was commanded to make it from one piece because we're all one, united one, even though we have different angles and ways of going about it, but we still all can become illuminators of our own light, of what's called a shelhevet olam me'aleh, a flame that ascends and lights up on its own, meaning it lights up from within. It doesn't need any more Aaron the priest to come and hold the candle to keep it lighting all day long. He lights it and then it's lit on its own. So too the Rebbe says, Lubavitcher Rebbes explains how we become generators of light on our own. And let's see it inside. First of all, he says the words, Shalhevet olam me'aleh, which is the Hebrew words that Rashi quotes to explain how we can be generators of light from within. The word that's used in Rashi on this verse, in this parsha, is shalhevet. It's a flame. So the Rebbe explains it's not just a little teeny flame. Shalhevet means a big flame, and we light our candle that we have, like our inner candle, our inner light that we have. We have all the ability to shine our own soul, but we can light it in a way that becomes shining and lighting to the whole environment that we're in. And not just with a little flame, but with a big, huge flame. Now, the other word that's used in this description of Shalhevet olam me'aleh is that it ascends. What's this ascent? It's through Torah and mitzvahs, through the Torah, which is called the light, and the mitzvahs, which is also called the candle. We are able to ascend. Now, what does ascend mean? That we're not just staying in one place or one level, but we're always ascending from level to level. It says that we're higher than angels, we're stronger than angels, we have more capacity than angels, because angels don't have free choice and cannot ascend from level to level. They're given one task, one job, and they stay at that level. Whereas we humans, God created us in such a way that we have free choice. He gave us the ability to make our own choices. When we make our own choice, we can ascend from one level to the next to the next. So that's the concept of an illuminating fire that's illuminated and ascending up. Then there's something else that it says, me'eleha, on its own, like we said before, that it's not dependent on external circumstances or external input anymore. That once we have the input, and once we refined our body, made our body tune in to God's will, and we made our habits to do God's will, we learn Torah, we internalize, we memorize in our brain is full with Torah, our body has been trained to serve God with mitzvahs, then we can become this generator of godly light without having to have an input in it so much. So let's continue though, because that gives us more clues and secrets and encouragement and how we can do this practically. And welcome iPhone. I guess whoever was on the iPhone left and came back. Now we have 2 iPhones, so just realize that, or 3 iPhones. Okay, welcome. Let's look inside. Pashas Behalascha. This is the book. Okay, the Barmalchus is from Lubavitcher Rebbes, 1991, on generating our own internal flame. and being shining on within our illuminators that can shine within our from within ourselves without needing to be ignited by anybody else or anything else from the outside. Okay. Settle this. I'm skipping the parts I said already. Okay. How do we do this? How do we become ascending souls, ascending flames from within? So he says like this. First of all, on our own, even though our physical body of a Jewish person on its own doesn't necessarily have this on its own just automatically shine forth bursting light of spirituality, right? We look at our body, we don't see God revealed through our body. We see a body that actually covers up ungodliness. Our body has its own limitations and its need. We don't see unlimited godliness when we look at ourselves. So how do we become illuminators, revealing godliness through us? It says, first of all, we train ourselves, like we said before. We train our bodies to automatically, like let's say we hear a blessing, we make amen. We hear somebody say something, we say thank God. We hear, we wake up in the morning, we say modani. It's like natural. It becomes part of our habit. We say modani, we wash our hands, we immediately get up and say the morning blessings. We can train our body to automatically throughout the day take from the money from the, put money for the pushka and put it in. It just becomes a natural part of our routine in the day, and it flows. We don't have to think so much about how we're going to do it. We don't have to push ourselves too much because it's part of who we are already. And similarly, the thoughts that we have already become part of our thoughts about God. We train our mind to think about God. And so naturally we're thinking about serving God. Now, this next stage, though, the Rebbe says, is that through understanding and revealing to ourselves, taking it into ourselves, into account into our lives, that our physical body is also connected to God on its own. It's not really just, even though it looks like a cover-up, our physical body is connected to God. And we know, and it's explained in Chassidus, that true existence of creation, anything in creation, right, including our physical body, is the existence of the true creator of God. God himself is really the true existence. Everything else that God created is a creation within godliness, but the true truth of everything, the essence of everything, is God's existence. Now, so in truth, what the Rebbe explains is that if we take this into account, that when we're doing God's will, we're doing Torah mitzvahs, we're not actually just forcing upon ourselves something that's foreign to us and something that's an addition to who we really are. Really, if we take into account and we take it to heart that everything is really enough, then through Torah mitzvahs, we're just revealing more of godliness through us. And we're opening that window, that channel, that we can see the truth of the world. The truth of the world is that God is creating it at every second. Torah mitzvahs is like that window and that key to be able to open and see it. See that there's something beyond what we see with our physical eye. So that is the reality that we can also reveal to ourselves, that that's the true reality, and live in that reality. The reality of the physical world that we see as a cover-up isn't the true reality. The true reality is that there's God here, and the key to be able to see that and to taste that and feel that and experience that is through keeping Torah and mitzvahs. So we're learning Torah, we're doing a mitzvah, we're connected with the true reality in a revealed way, and therefore, the Rebbe explains, when we're living on that level, it's not a hard thing that we have to keep pushing ourselves and training ourselves and be like taskmasters, forcing ourselves to do Torah and mitzvahs. It becomes part of a revelation, a part of who we are and what we are. This is who we are and what we are, and it's the reality of who we are and what we are. It totally fits. It totally is us. So it's not something that we say, okay, now give ourselves points and stars. We did it once, we did it twice. We're going to push ourselves tomorrow to do it 5 times. No, this is part of who we are. We're not even taking account on accounting measurements. It's part of our existence and a revelation of our true essence being expressed through Torah and mitzvahs. And it goes beyond the counting of time and space and beyond the counting of training and all that. We're on this a different type of playing field, a different wavelength completely. Now, this is the wavelength of the times of Mashiach. This is the revelation of times of Mashiach. And this is what the Rebbe says. He wants us to be on this revelation and existence and kind of comprehension and outlook nowadays in our times. So let's see more inside this. Shlomo Rebbe adds to this. Okay, true. First, we need to train ourselves. When we start with serving God, when our body is still covering up and has its own desires and its own desires or its own needs and cover-ups, and maybe it's contrary to what God wants or what our true essence is all about, then, yeah, at the beginning, we need to train ourselves, to work on ourselves, to not let it cover up and to reveal godliness. But later, once we have this consciousness of this reality of godliness, that our true essence is just God, and our body is just a cover up, the body doesn't cover up anymore. The body becomes a help, an assistance in utilizing its talents and its energies and its understandings to be able to reveal God in the world through Torah and mitzvahs. If there's any questions you can ask, feel free. We're in the Parshas Baloscha in chapter 7, 1991, talk from the Rebbe. Okay, now, aside from working on ourselves, when we take a physical object, we use it for a mitzvah, and we elevate it for holiness, the physical thing also is elevated, and it reveals godliness. So through that, the person actually takes a physical object, elevates it, makes it into a holy object, but then the holiness becomes part and parcel of that physical object. Like, for instance, the example I gave last week was like if you take a scroll and parchment and you take ink and you put the two together through a scribe who's learned the laws of Torah, you can actually create a physical object that is holy. You can make a Torah scroll, you can make a pair of tefillin. These are holy objects that have a new energy of their own, a new holiness of their own that wasn't there. So even though we put the energy into it, now it's on its own. It has, right? It's like a shining and a flame, ascending flame on its own. It stands with holiness on its own. It doesn't need our constant input. The sofer doesn't have to keep holding on to it to give it its holiness. It has its own identity, its own holiness. Not only that, it can influence the person, can bring extra holiness to the person afterwards when they make the blessing and put it on and use it on their home. So this is similar to what we said about ourselves. Our body, we can make it into a holy vessel, which is an incredible thought. So God gave us a body. On its own, it's just a body, okay? If it covers the ungodliness. But when we take in the pieces of Torah and mitzvahs and imbue it into our body, and we refine the body to understand that it's the reality of the body is just here to serve God. And we bring that consciousness more and more, and we understand that it's all really God. So the more we work on developing this consciousness and this thought, speech, and action, the body becomes a vehicle, just like the mezuzah becomes a holy vehicle, and the tefillin becomes a holy vehicle, and the Torah scroll becomes a holy vehicle. Actually, if a Jew falls or a Torah scroll falls, I'm just thinking of this now, there's a law. Well, who do you pick up first? And the law is the Jewish body. Okay, so we are all holy, and we reveal our own holiness more through keeping Torah and mitzvahs. But we can become like this, I said, this flame that doesn't need inspiration and input in order to be revealing godliness. We can become this by refining ourselves and then coming to this level of understanding of God, that we are on this consciousness and wavelength, that we're just a flame that's revealing godliness. We're ascending in holiness on our own. We're generating our own inspiration, our own understandings, and our own, not after a while, the Rebbe says we all can become inspirers and explainers of Torah in a way that nobody else explained it to us, right? We put all the pieces together of what we learned, we experience it in our understanding at this moment, and we can generate insights into Torah. Okay, let's look again inside. Rebbe gives another example of how the holy object becomes a generator for us, meaning it gives back to us. Like, let's say in the olden days, they would give sacrifices, and they would say this animal is going to be used for a holy purpose and a sacrifice, and then the sacrifice could bring atonement to the person who sinned. That's another example. Now, let's bring inside here more. Says, go to the next level, which I briefly mentioned before, which is not just making an object into a holy object. Anything we use in the world as a vehicle to serve God with, we elevate it. So like we elevate our food, we elevate our business contacts, anything we use to make the business, anything we use in our home. If we're using all our material things to serve God better and to have godly consciousness, they're all being elevated for this purpose. They're all being used for a godly purpose. And we're elevating them. And they can become also generators of energy back to us, because on their own, they now become entities on their own of generating holiness. For instance, he gives this the example of putting like a tzedakah box in the child's room. That you take a physical box, a regular box, and then you put it in a place that it's noticeable on the wall. And then when you walk by it, it reminds you to put charity in, or reminds the kid that it's in his room. Same thing with if you put holy books in a child's room, the child sees the books, and that inspires him and reminds him to open up the book and to learn something. So we have also an ability to put extra strength into a physical object, that it should inspire us and help us and support us in our service of God. And we can do that with other people in the world, and with physical objects. That they on their own become something that generate their own energy of encouragement back to the world. If there's any questions you can ask. Okay, now we'll get to the part of the complainers. Unless you want to first ask a question. There brings in this whole part of the Torah portion where it talks about the complainers. In this past week's Shabbos, we read about that the Jewish people complained. Now, some of us can relate to this. Sometimes we give into complaining. Rabbi Wolffe on Shabbos mentioned something that there's a Gemara that talks about it, that if there's somebody who's a complainer and a complainer, as Moses also spoke to God about it, and he said they're complaining, and God said, kind of forget about it. It's not really, you can't change people, right? If somebody wants to complain, you give them what they want, they'll just complain about something else. And if you give them that, you just complain about something else. If they want this, then they'll always find something else that they want to ask for or complain about. So, which means that the point is that somebody's a complainer, sounds like they want to be heard more, and they want to be able to complain. It's kind of like an outlet for them. Makes them feel good. They have something to be able to hold on to that's not right, that they need to be fixing or being paid attention to for. So it's not about the thing that they're missing. It's about the ability to be able to complain that gives them some sort of a kick. So however, in this week's Torah, I can't say that we're perfect. We've never complained, but let's take a lesson from when we do complain, what happens, okay, and how we can fix it. So let's say we have the Jewish people in the desert, and they're complaining about not having meat, which is what happened this last week's Torah portion. And first of all, the Rebbe says, why does even Torah mention this? Why would Torah talk about the Jewish people's, faults? The Torah is very careful not to speak negatively and to highlight a whole story of complaining. It must be more to it than just complaining. And the Rebbe says, yeah, the Jewish people really in their essence, they're not complainers. They're not complainers in their essence. It's not who they are. The whole point of them coming to the story of complaining was in order to come to something better inside of them to come to new, deeper relationship with God that had to do with teshuvah, revealing, and let me just mute somebody, revealing a very high level of connection to God. I'm going to mute. Unless you want to ask a question, I'm muting you. Okay. So what was the complaining for? What was the purpose of them complaining? Was really to bring them to a level of connection to God, and a deeper level of connection to God. Because when they regretted the fact that they saw it doesn't help, they saw it wasn't correct, they saw it wasn't the way to get what they want anyway, it's not really what life is about or what it's all about, and they realized that their connection to God could be better, and their understanding of the world and God could be better, and they did tshuva, what's called, they regretted, and they mended their ways and reconnected to God in a much deeper, out of this feeling of this regret and deeper understanding of God, it propelled them to actually come to a much higher level of appreciation and connection to God. So that's the purpose, the Rebbe says, of this complaining and any type of distancing ourselves from God, like we would do if we're complaining. Any type of distancing is an opportunity for us to actually reconnect to God on a much, much deeper and profound level, when we realize this is an opportunity for us to use these feelings of regret and feelings of really maybe ashamed of how we behaved and realizing it was silly and maybe even harmful, not helpful, and short-sighted, and whatever it is that we realize, it gives us an ability to now appreciate God more, relate to God deeply, and realize our inner connection, our abilities, our way to be able to serve God with more joy, enthusiasm, positivity, etc. So that's the lesson of the complainers in this past week's parsha. Very helpful lesson for me personally about complaining doesn't help. Not only doesn't help, it makes things worse. Complaining breaks more of a distance, puts people on the defensive, puts people in a position where they just think they're wrong, and it's not helpful, it doesn't encourage them, it doesn't give them the energy that they need or want to be able to serve God. So that's it. Hopefully we'll always catch ourselves before complaining that this is not the way to bring out the best. The way to bring out the best is directly look at our soul, not at what we're missing, but to look at how well our soul is connected to God, how kind God is, how good each other's souls are, how everybody's soul wants to do things to serve. It's just a question of how we're going to serve God together better. That's all it is. That's all it's about. So that is the talk about the complainers and the lesson from the complainers. And to know, the Rebbe says that all the trials and tribulations, the complaints, the darkness, the covering ups, the body, the everything, all this is just to reveal a deeper and greater light and a deeper and greater connection. And this is what actually brings us to being able to generate our own light also. And that's why we've gone through many, many years of exile, many, many years of darkness. And we're finally, the Rebbe says, we're in the final stages. We're in the last generation of the exile, first generation of Geula. And we have all the power from all the generations preceding us, input into us, to give us the ability to come to the final stages of the greatest revelations of all the generations, which is happening now in our time. Okay, so anybody have questions? Okay. If not, I think I'm gonna sign off, and you can watch. Hopefully I'll post this on YouTube, Beis Chana channel, and you can send me questions through our website, beischana.weebly.com, or you can WhatsApp me if you're on this chat or on this WhatsApp, or on email, beischana770@gmail.com. And I look forward to hearing feedback and celebrating Geula with you in Yerushalayim. Viva.